out of respect for those who've given their all for these United States of America. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Eternal God, once again, we come before you tonight. We're thankful for the many blessings bestowed upon us. We ask that you lead us and guide us throughout our evening. We ask for special prayers for those that are in need. Those that are here tonight, we pray that all is well. We ask the special blessing for the citizens of this community that we serve. We pray for those that are in leadership positions to lead without disturbance. We pray that all things done here tonight be done according to your will and to your pleasure. We ask that you help and keep us within the acceptable boundaries of all mankind. These and all other blessings we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Parrish.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Blanco.
Here.
Councilman Bovair. Councilwoman Warner.
Here.
Councilman Whipple.
Here.
City Attorney Garganese. Here. City Manager Tacanet.
Here.
And Assistant City Manager Fuhr.
Here.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda for the regular meeting of September 11th, 2018 as presented or with amendments. I also make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 10th, 2018 as written or with amendments.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, so we'll start off with delegations. Reverend Dennis?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reverend Johnny Dennis, 3710 Catalina Drive, West Cocoa. The National Action Network is a chartered and nationwide organization. There was some question raised about why I do this or why I do that. Under the First Amendment of the Constitution, all U.S. citizens have the right to protest. They have the right to freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and the freedom to redress any issue anywhere. We got a call 8 weeks ago where there was a vigilante over in Clearwater, Florida. That sheriff had told my leader to shut his mouth and go back to New York. When he come back with the federal marshals and the Justice Department, and we got an arrest. Okay, another thing, kneeling about profiling or kneeling about any situation. There's a 1943 Supreme Court law that says anyone can kneel to protest anything they want to in America. It is perfectly legal, so don't bring up your Nikes. It is not debatable. And as far as safety concerns, we as representatives of the National Action Network, we represent every race, creed, and color. On July the 30th, I was subpoenaed to trial in a dependency case for a female who was white. At my church, I had a lady come in there and use loud profanity, threaten somebody in my church. I had 6 deacons drag her out and counsel her. Then I counseled her after to cool off. She come back in there again, threatening people. This time I took her to court on March the 22nd throughout the church and off the property, because the third time she might come back with a weapon and kill everybody in the church. So we stand for safety of everybody, no matter what race, creed, or color. And I'd especially like to thank our city manager for the hard work he's putting into the Citizen Review Board, and I'll be looking forward to when we get it set up and going. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rev.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lawrence Sinclair?
Good evening. Lawrence Sinclair, 1052 Mitchell Street, Cocoa, Florida. Real quick, 1102 Belafonte Avenue has been secured, and Tabitha Moore will be moving into it once we get a new roof put on it, and hopefully by the 1st of October. In other words, Backrap's still alive and well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Greenwood?
Do I need to? Alex Greenwood, 640 Brevard Avenue. How you all doing? Thank you. Very quick, I'm just bringing to your attention on a couple of things that's I consider very important. The canoe that was discovered in our water, I understand it's being removed and taken, I think, to Tallahassee. I'm wanting to know if that's true or not, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I'm hoping that's a chance that we could have it returned, that it's, I hope, temporary, because there was something that a lot of the public was very supportive of for what was discovered that was back in the 1600s, I think, or 1700s. How does the council feel about that? I mean, would you be more comfortable knowing that it stays in Cocoa? That's what I'm interested in.
Alex, they found it the morning of the Irma hurricane.
Yes.
Irma, and was kind of kept in a secret place in a little pond within a mile. Then it was moved. Tallahassee wanted to process it and figure out where it came from, who built it, who made it. And during that process, they still don't know if it's an Indian canoe or a European dugout canoe from shipwrecked people.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the new City Hall at Cape Canaveral, I guess they requested to display it temporarily whenever it gets released. And I heard it's going to get released pretty soon, so it's going to be on temporary display. After that, we don't know. It could end up on Michigan Avenue, I mean, at the other
I
museum.
strongly support that
Oh, but
because
now-
I'm sorry.
It was found like a block, maybe 100 yards outside the city limits, just north of Cocoa. That's the truth. And,
I didn't know that. I thought,
yeah, well, I mean, the powers that be was
well,
made that
then
decision.
you
It is
just
temporary, I know that.
you just explained it. I was hoping that we could be
Yeah, I
the
think
sole.
long-term we'll get it. I do.
I hope so.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that the museum on Michigan
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
will
old-
probably be where it
I
ends
hope
up.
so.
Yeah.
But I have another idea that's even better than that, but not now.
Unfortunately, we don't get
Let me
much
tell you
of
your
a say.
idea, is to have a big museum downtown. That's what I thought.
Almost like a museum, but damn close.
That's a good idea.
I will move on to next thing. Has any, this maybe for the city manager, has there been any consideration for the substation that was suggested at the last meeting that could be located in downtown Cocoa Village, either renting one of the storefronts, something that's very inexpensive, some kind of location? And I also feel that it would be great to have them on bicycles like we used to have. At least they're there, they're visible, and they're not as threatening as being in the cars. We had them for a while in Cocoa Village.
Okay, short answer, no,
Sure.
because it's a component of the redevelopment agency redevelopment plan, community policing. So it would be, they would have to prioritize that related to, once the plan is adopted, and that would fall within the CRA's purview. In terms
So I
of
need to present it to
prioritization.
them.
It's in the plan.
It's in the
It's
plan.
already in the plan.
All right.
It was brought up, but it was already in the plan
Okay.
as a possibility. There was not a time horizon attached to it, but it's in the plan for
Okay, I
community
only have
policing.
two other things. Sorry, I'm rushing it. Has the architect been chosen for the contest that was created for the interest rate of cocoa? And is there a date that you all are familiar with getting it presented, the follow-up from the architect and the information of the items that was presented for the contest?
Okay, it's my understanding, the architect, it's actually somebody that's on retainer or one of our continuing services providers with the city, and they are working based on, again, you're actually asking, it's a CRA item.
Yes.
So the CRA board provided direction in terms of what elements to include, and then the architect's working on developing that.
You had asked me to ask you about the date.
Yeah,
that we could
I
have.
don't have the dates yet.
No date yet? Would it be within the month or what?
I don't know. We've reached out, and it was last night. I have not received an answer yet.
Okay. All right, the last thing, I need to bring it to everybody's attention. I had no idea how many people religiously watch these recordings of the meetings, not just of the council, but of a lot of the boards. And it was repeated to me on numerous occasions that even by using headphones, they cannot really hear clearly what people are saying. And I think that's something that is a technical thing.
Yeah,
and-
We're aware of it.
Oh, you are?
We're trying to work with Granicus as well as even in YouTube. We're trying to figure out what the issue is.
Okay, I'm trying to rush it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Alice.
Hey, Alec, on the crime situation, it's becoming off the chain again down here. I
I
mean, we've
know.
had a couple of, at my house, somebody stole a bike the other night, and then a lot of things downtown at night, a lot of complaints of,
We really
People
need,
badgering people.
even if we don't have a substation, I don't like any cars taking car spots, like
Yeah.
some of the police department vehicles are there, which was something to do. Maybe we can put them in the Bank of America or something that the public doesn't normally park at.
Right.
But we really need, we used to have 2 police officers on bicycles there, and everybody loved
Right.
seeing that because they were there and they're not as intimidating,
yeah.
you know?
And just to let you know for the record, I looked at the sheriff's department's arrests, and it's Cocoa, but it's not Cocoa, it's all in the county. So they've got a serious crime
Well, I
problem.
remember a long
We're
time
trying-
ago, Friday night
know,
got
Friday
that
night.
corrected,
That's right.
and they walked away from it. Now we need to
Yeah.
correct it again, because it's not necessarily in Cocoa. They're
No, it's not.
blanketing it
There's-
with Port St.
yeah,
John
there's a
and Canaveral
spillover
Groves.
for poor policing in the county, I mean, honestly. And they're blaming it all on Cocoa, but it's not. It's Merritt Island.
Well,
Port St.
we got
John.
it fixed once before,
Yeah, we sure did, that's right.
and we need to fix it again.
Yeah, we need to fix it again.
Now, who and what do we need to do?
Well, I'll tell you off, I'll
Okay.
tell you.
Another
Yeah.
time. All right.
It's a
Thank you.
process. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's good, very good. Okay, that's it for that. So we're gonna go to consent.
Okay, I make a motion, we approve consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public hearing, super attorney, or you want somebody else to do this?
No, I just wanted to point out, we found an error on the consent agenda just now under Norris Park's renewal of his reappointment. The requested action said it was through September 30th, 2018. That's an error. It's actually September 30th, 2020. I just wanted to point that out. But
And it's in the body of the agenda,
Yeah.
actually, too.
And he's
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Number 4.
It's up there.
20, okay.
Number
Yeah.
4.
So
Number
Norris
4.
gets
Norris,
2 years
okay.
instead of 20 days,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
I think,
2 years and 20 days.
thank you.
Okay, only public hearing item tonight is ordinance number 8-2018, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Brevard County, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 7, Police Officers Retirement Plan of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cocoa by amending Section 2-191, Definitions, amending Section 2-220, Share Plan, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. As I noted, this is second and final reading of this ordinance. There haven't been any changes since first. It's a public hearing item. Mayor.
Okay. Good, I close it to the council, bring it up to the public. Anybody like to speak on this ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add, since the agenda was published earlier, or late last week, the pension actuary provided the impact statement to this, and we updated it to the agenda item online by Carrie, and we have it in front of us now. This change, according to the pension actuary, will result in only additional 0.36% of payroll of pension for pension contributions.
Added to the annual required
Added.
contribution.
Okay.
If you recall, we mentioned it was about $52,000 annually.
Okay, I just wanted to
What is
point
that?
that out. And there were other changes done to the pension plan recently that, changes that they did that changed the assumptions, which overall it
Discussed it
changed.
very well
Yeah,
last meeting.
so anyways, okay.
No, very good. Appreciate it.
In depth, rather.
Anybody like to speak on this ordinance? No? Okay, close it to the public, bring it back to council. Brenda,
Motion to approve.
Second.
second over here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Positive changes, that's good. All right, I have one card on this one. Chief? John Luke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Asking council to approve the current code enforcement lien for the property located at 2228 Salem Drive be reduced from $34,250 to $3,000. The Code Enforcement Board, at its regular meeting on August 16, 2018, recommended that the lien be reduced to $3,000. Staff is in agreement with our recommendation and is recommending to council that the lien be reduced to $3,000.
Okay, I have a card on this one. Lawrence, you want to speak? Is the owner here of this property? No.
Lawrence Sinclair, 1052 Metro Street. This goes back to the same thing as last council. I took the time to actually pull up everything and speak to code. I'm confused. We have investment companies that come in here and buy up properties. This is a rental property that this company was taking in monthly income from. And yet they took from August of 2017 to May of 2018 to come into compliance. In discussions with city staff and people involved with code, you know, people have said, well, it's not meant to be punitive. That's correct. These liens are not meant to be punitive, but you have to understand something. The lien's not. The lien's only enforced after the property owner has been given ample time to come into compliance and get the property into compliance. And when they refuse to do so, you're talking about, what, 60, 90 days before, you know, an order for a lien's even imposed. I don't understand how Residential Capital Management Fund, which is represented by a law firm, I don't see the actual names of the managers here, they're justifying their lien request because they say they've invested $43,000 into this property. Well, I'm sure they have, because they're fixing to sell it for $200,000. Since when does the city turn around and allow people to make neighbors in the city look at this crap for years and then just turn around and say it's okay? I understand it says staff recommended. Staff's going to recommend anything that they feel they can get. But I think if you actually sat down and talked to staff, I think they would also tell you that this has got to stop. People keep doing this in the city of Cocoa because we keep letting them get away with it. $34,000 in fines? I strongly urge you to charge them at least $10,000 on those liens. Because if you don't send the message, it just keeps going. And why should that neighborhood and those neighbors and those adjoining property owners have to put up and live with that for a year before they came into compliance on an investment property that's already putting money in their pocket?
Okay, thanks. Anybody want to say anything?
I do have a question. Chief, do you know, it says that this current property owner was not the owner at the time the violations occurred, but Mr. Sinclair is saying that it took them 9 months to come into compliance. They bought it in August. Did they buy it in August, or was it still under the previous property owner in August? Do we know? When they bought it, how long they had it before they brought it into compliance?
No, not exactly. I don't have it on here.
Okay. Let me see if I can find out real quick. You know, I have no problem reducing a lien when somebody brings it into compliance, you know, 90 days or so from the time they purchase the property. And if that's the case with this one, if they didn't own it when the fines started in August.
I don't believe that they did
I'm looking
actually
at
own
the
it
property appraiser right now.
at the
okay.
time.
Yeah.
Code Enforcement Board went through it.
Yeah. Well, I said whether the current owner owned the property at the time the violation occurred,
It,
so.
it says no.
It says
Yeah.
no. So if it wouldn't have, because we checked that before.
Well, I've noticed that when the property is still owned by the same people that were the owners when the liens started, the code board is a lot less inclined to reduce the liens.
That's true.
So that's, I mean, they're usually a little more lenient when somebody buys the property and cleans it up, as long as they clean it up within a reasonable amount of time. I just didn't see anything on here that told me when these people actually bought the property.
2 seconds. I think the date that's in the council, or in the agenda item, is that it was May 16 of 17. It was there was a quick claim deed for the property.
So they bought it in May of 17? So they owned it in August of 17 when we started the liens? The liens ran
Yes,
from
the deed.
August 20th of 2017
Yeah.
until May 21st of 2018.
Didn't
So
go
they
to
did
courts.
own it when the liens started in August?
I'm looking at the clerk of courts.
looking at
There's a
clerk of
deed
courts, yeah.
that was recorded on 5/26/2017 with Residential Capital Management Fund.
Okay. Well, that answers that question.
So they did own it in August. So do we know that this information is correct and these $125 per day liens started on August 20th, 2017? That is not a typo?
As far as I know, yes. I don't have the other.
Okay, well then here's what I would
The
like to do.
application,
Because if this is the owner who owned the property when these violations started and we started fining them, then no, they don't deserve that kind of a lien reduction.
according to the application, which is filled out by the applicant, the liens, the date the fines or liens were imposed were August 20th of 2017, which would have been after they,
After
and
they
it says,
purchased
were you the
property.
property owner at the time the lien was imposed? Yes. That's the applicant's statement.
Oh, so that
Okay.
was a typo then.
Yeah, because
Typo.
this says,
Yeah.
is the current owner of
It's
the
on
property
page
at the
2
time
of
of the
6 of the
violation?
application, under section 5.
But if you look at the first page, which is the
Okay,
code
yeah, they
enforcement
did.
staff
That must have
report,
been
it
a
says,
typo.
no, they were not the owner
Yeah,
when
that
the
must
lien
have been a
started.
typo.
That's an error,
That's an
Okay.
error on ours.
based on the applicant's own admission in their application.
Well, I'm wondering if the code enforcement board made their recommendation based on this being, no, they were not the owners at the time, or if they noticed. So I'm not comfortable moving this item forward. I'd like to table it to the next meeting and find out if the code enforcement board was aware that these people were the owners of the property when the violations occurred.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Okay, that's a
Okay.
motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
You buy a piece of property and you clean it up, I don't have any problem reducing your violations, but if you're an investment property owner and you let that happen and you let liens go to $34,000, Mr. Sinclair's correct, you don't deserve a,
And in fact,
Reduction.
it looked like they actually purchased it in February 28, 17, then did a quick claim to another very similarly named organization.
yeah, then they created that problem.
Yes.
They can pay for it.
Okay, let's go to the next.
The value back down.
Tammy?
Yes, sir. This is to consider the appointment of Mr. David Prather as a regular member of the Utilities Advisory Board through November 2020. And Mr. Prather is in the audience today.
I think we could do a motion to approve that.
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And thank you.
All right, Dave, thank you.
It'd be great to have your expertise on that board.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Mr. City Manager? Got number 3.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you will recall, in the city strategic plan, the 5-year plan, obviously one of the top issues, or the top issue identified was crime. As one of the strategic issues, one of the objectives was to create a community relations council. Subsequently, the city engaged the services of the Center for Public Safety Management, who issued their report in March of 18 and presented before the council at a public workshop in June of 18 with a recommendation that a formal advisory group be established. The group being comprised of community stakeholders such as local clergy, business leaders, school administrators, community advocates, and has recommended the board be advisory in nature, not having authority to formally review or revise departmental policy, procedures, or tactics. But they did say provide alternatively for more formal citizen advisory committee, again advisory, that the council carefully consider the scope and the authority. provided in the agenda item. There's multiple sources out there, but generally speaking, there's 4 types or models of citizen review of police departments, of which there's variations within each type, from a more an outright citizen review board that has very vast powers, the citizen review, or police review, citizen oversight, police review, citizen appeal, and then independent citizen auditor. The City of Cocoa previously established a Police Community Relations Advisory Board in July of 1990. There was a couple changes throughout the years, and then in 1997, by resolution, they abolished the Police Community Relations Advisory Board. I think we can all agree policing in this day and age has changed since 1997 with more heightened scrutiny with officers and some of the issues that are prevalent in many other communities. In reviewing the National League of Cities as well as the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, it identified, and actually they were discussed during the best practices and recommendation and how policing practices can promote effective crime reduction while building public trust. And these were, I would say these were to some degree a large discussion and a component of the mayor's 2014 and 2016 crime summits. There was a discussion on various best practices and recommendation. Reconstituting the Cocoa Police Community Relations Advisory Board with a defined role would certainly provide a positive opportunity to engage citizens in identifying and addressing community needs and police community relations, as well as programs and initiatives to reduce crime. It would provide a forum for citizens to address the police chief or department leadership on community concerns or individual complaints, promote transparency regarding police conduct in terms of ensuring internal investigation report findings are presented publicly. They are public record after it's completed, subject to, the caveat if there's the timing, if there's lawsuits or legal claims. So with regard to that scope and of that advisory board, if you were to go down the route, because you have we have multiple alternatives, what I'm recommending is you reconstitute the previous board, and that you do not provide the authorization to review all department policies, procedures, tactics, rules, and regulations as recommended by CPSM, but in the interest of transparency and accountability and enhancing the public trust and confidence in the police department. And I can tell you, after having exhaustively reviewed several recent complaints and have essentially, I think if maybe possibly the reports were presented at a public board and the citizens had a place to go, they would see that accountability and transparency is woven throughout the department. The department's an accredited agency. The Commission for Florida Law Enforcement Accreditation reviews the department's policies, procedures, regulations every 3 years. We've been accredited since June 7th, 2006, and that accreditation really speaks to the intent and the desire for the department to operate at the highest standards of professionalism. So my recommendation is that the review, if you're in the interest of transparency, and as it relates to enhancing the public trust, that the Cocoa Police Community Relations Advisory Board be authorized to review policy, procedures, rules, regulations, and general and special orders pertaining only to the use of force and police conduct towards citizens. And if warranted, then that board would issue a written recommendation to the chief, the city manager, or city council, if warranted. So you'd narrow the scope. That's the issue that many are concerned about. But what they would not be doing is, and I know there's been recommendations to have subpoena powers, to interview and investigate officer. That's highly, I don't think it's necessary.
It's also not allowed
Well,
under Florida law, is it?
Yeah, it's not legal.
There is some, I know Sheriff Deming certainly took it to the District Court of Appeals, and they determined that the county charter didn't, trump, because you have the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, which provides, certain protections and due process for the officers. Because they're going through an investigation process, you know, it's not like, so they get certain protections. Just like any citizens that might be arrested or, so there's protections involved there. So that's why I would say that you limit it just to the policy, and then in terms of promoting that citizen review and that transparency regarding police conduct, the Cocoa Police Community Relations Advisory Board should be tasked with review of closed, and I emphasize closed, department internal investigation of complaints filed against police officers only where, where it involves, alleged use of, deadly force, improper force, or in an instance where a police action resulted in death or bodily injury. And again, the timing of that review would have to take into account any lawsuit or legal claims pending against the city, and keeping in mind the context and respect of the law enforcement officer's rights. I also think it would be, because, I don't think this is a single focused tool. The idea is, when we talked about it in the strategic planning process, is that it also be, and even the CPSM study, it'd be an opportunity for the chief to, to enhance, and I think if you read the 2017 annual report, and you saw how many opportunities that, with the faith advisory group, the number of neighborhood count, meetings that they attend, the special events, very active, one of the most active community policing units, I believe, that currently exists in the county. And I think it would be an opportunity for the chief to be empowered to bring and present before the board any police community relation issues or community needs, and seek input as he may deem necessary. And in the same vein, it provides an open forum for the members of the public to raise any comments or concerns. So in terms of the board composition, I would recommend 7 members. I think the city, each member of city council appointing a member, the city manager is responsible for administrative operations, responsibility for the city, and then a representative of the PBA appointing a member. And consistent with those guidelines, being a citizen, being one of those key stakeholders as identified, earlier. So essentially, that's my recommendation. I've done a lot of research of late in terms of responding to petitions and or, allegations of misconduct, which have not come out to be the case as alleged. And I don't think there's a pressing problem, but, we did commit, and we have discussed previously about the idea of the Community Relations, Advisory Board. And with the limited scope, I think it would, it's not meant to be a scepter to hang over the officer's head or our police department, because I think they do a good job. And I think it'd be a tool for the community and for the police department and the police chief in engaging the community further. So we're essentially, asking for direction, both myself and the city attorney, in terms of, as well as the police chief, on what direction you want to go in terms of establishing a Cocoa Police Community Relations Advisory Board.
Right. John, well, go ahead.
I have just a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So we do not have an ordinance in mind yet. We're going to write an ordinance from scratch.
Correct.
Okay, based on the council's recommendations. Then I would like to suggest a couple things. One, I only know of one board in this county that seems to actually function as it should and actually benefit the community, and that's the one they have in Melbourne. I'd like to see a copy of their ordinance. I would also like to see a copy of the ordinance that the city used in 1990 to establish our original board. I have no objection, provided that the scope is narrow, and having chaired the board that was disbanded in 1997, and I was the chair of that board when it was disbanded, and I sat on it for at least a year, I think, prior to that. I think I have a pretty good understanding of what the issues can be. So I have no problem following the city manager's recommendation, provided that you bring forward an ordinance that we can all take a look at and look for issues in, and maybe have an open discussion on, because I think our problem previously with the board, and the reason it was disbanded was because people were appointed to the board who did not understand what the role of the board was. So if we as council members are gonna appoint members of the board, we need to make sure we have a discussion, make sure they get a copy of the ordinance and that they understand what their role is before we appoint them to the board. So I have no objection with moving forward on the city manager's recommendation, but those are just some things I'd like to see before we do.
Okay, Mr. Whipple?
Yes, sir. John, thank you for your presentation and your comments in regards to the need for such a board. I do believe that we need to go forward as soon as possible on establishing the criteria for establishing this board, to make sure that we cover all the grounds that need to be covered, and to put some of the issues that confronts us today in regards to our community relations with the police department. I think we need to go forward as soon as possible to establish the criteria to establish this board. We have to start somewhere, and I don't think there's a doubt with any of the council members that this type of board is actually needed. From this CPSM report, there's lots of information in here in regards to how our police department functions. There's some great information in here as to how we could be more efficient. And just to name a couple, our peak times for response to our community from our police department, they are highly taxed in certain times of the day, weekends, etc. And all of that information is here. There was a recommendation made to us that if the hours of the day would change for our staff, that we could become more efficient at the peak times and hours that we or lacks with the number of staff that we need. And I haven't heard anyone come forward with any of those suggestions as to whether or not we're going to even entertain a change of hours for staffing. It was an excellent idea. So I'm saying that the board that we established need to have this information so that they can understand how the police department operates and some of the things that has caused us the problems that we have been confronted with public relations of our officers. So I'm all for going forward with establishing this board, but there are many things that we need to address internally to become more efficient now.
Okay.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Jerry?
Yeah, I'm all for establishing a formal advisory group as well. The only suggestion I would like to make that we expand the scope of the appointees from, we have, the staff is suggesting 7 members of council, city manager, and then the PBA. And I would like to suggest that we expand that to one of the groups in the community, such as NAACP, and let them make a recommendation as well. So that's something I think we should take into consideration.
Maybe we as council members could reach out to some of these organizations and churches to look for,
Absolutely.
because if this board operates like the rest of our boards, where, you can't serve on 2 boards, so the people that we already have serving are already,
Well, but if we reach out to like an organization such as the NAACP and then, ask them if they can make a recommendation as well.
one of their members
Right,
want to sit on the
Right.
board.
One of the community leaders that they value, so.
Yeah,
It's just a recommendation.
I don't have any objection to, reaching out into the community and talking to some of our ministers or whoever to look for
Okay.
the person that I appoint, because right off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody that I would appoint necessarily out of my district,
Right, exactly.
Yeah. One of the
Yeah.
thing I want to mention, Mr. Mayor, is,
Yeah.
we need to take a look at the time that's involved in this, because we've been wrestling with this for quite some time now as to what we're going to do. And we're finally at the point to where we can vote to establish something. What type of time limits or are we gonna set for ourselves to establish this functioning board?
Well, I think what we've asked for, they could probably bring back to us an ordinance and some stuff to look at probably by our next council meeting, Mr. City Manager?
I would be cautious to say that maybe the one after that. The reason why I
First of
say that is we have a bond closing still.
Okay.
We also have, there's also the CRA plan, and and I know the budget is gonna be this week, but I think the next meeting, the ordinance, there would have to be complete by the end of this week.
So there's not any reason why we can't get this board established like sometime in the month of October? probably?
I think so.
Okay.
And I think
Yes.
previously, and the attorney can correct me, but I know some of the ones we've done are by resolution,
Mhm.
which would only require one,
One reading.
one reading.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's expedite it, that's what I'm thinking that
And I
we
just-
do, and not, put it on the
Yes.
back burner. We need to get
Okay.
it up front.
We need to
Right.
move forward with it.
Let me just
Right.
add a couple things here. When I was elected, of course, we all know this, we started emphasizing soft policing, which we've done. I know there's a lot of people who think this process is slow. It is, but let me give you a little historical background here. On the Crime Summit of 2014 and 2016, we talked about a community or citizen review board, and that was Alberta Wilson, and on the main panel with the sheriff the first time, and I'd like you to bring back the Melbourne's ordinance. Of all the people I've talked to, that seems to be the one that works. Like Brenda said, it's true. Also, I want the audience to know this, that we were a little bit frustrated after these crime summits, the first one, and we were the first community to adopt and buy, and it was a lot of money, body cams. Okay, so what we're talking about is fair treatment for our citizens and our visitors in our city, and make sure everybody's treated right. Make sure the professionals stay professional, and they will. But everything that's happened in the last 6 years has kind of narrowed things down. I certainly deal with a lot less police issues out there. But the body cams, it wasn't Rockledge that instituted them first. It was us. And I think it was 400-something grand we spent to ensure that everybody is treated fairly. And we had a lot of shenanigans up until that point for decades, folks. And the body cams certainly made honest people honest. Okay, so I want to make this clear. The crime summits, the soft policing, the Melbourne ordinance, you got to bring back. Let's look at it in depth so we can start moving on this, and we'll get a community or citizen review board in place. This isn't rocket science, but Brenda's right. In the past, I do remember maybe Clarence or John on the old review boards, it got way out of whack because people did not know the rules, and you end up walking there like you're the dictator, and you're trying to get somebody fired who you don't like, and you just didn't have that kind of power. And truthfully, the police department has its code of ethics and the code it lives by, and it's backed up through the system. But certainly, this should narrow any problems we've had for years and years, on and off, and not so much lately. The shenanigans, wherever it comes from, should get exposed. But let's definitely start with the Melbourne ordinance. If it looks palatable, I say, like Clarence said, let's get something passed, get it moving, and do it right. But I'm telling you, the body cams, folks, were shenanigans stopped, because there was a lot of stuff on both sides there that keeps people honest everywhere. There's no human in this world that's honest 100% of the time, believe it or not. Things happen, you lose your temper or whatever. But we want to be the best city with the best police department, and we want the citizens promoting that. And I believe we'll have that once we institute this. So, okay. John, what do you got?
I just want to, you mentioned the body cameras, and I think the chief will agree that the body cameras has proven an effective tool for addressing, looking at officer conduct, but also
Sure,
looking at
yeah.
the incident in totality, and in many times clearing and having a record of what occurred. And it's been a useful tool. But I think one of the things that one of the things in the aftermath of doing some of this most recent research that I know you all have received the memos on, is that I think absent having information on what the outcome was, meaning the general public, maybe the complainant receives it, but then they don't share, they share their side of the story, not the full story. Absent having that, rumors and perceptions continue to exist.
Right.
So if if the closed investigations are presented at a public meeting before the board, then it's out there, so the truth's out there.
Yeah.
Rather than people to just suggest and perpetuate misinformation and, things that are not factual. So I think that's where it could serve as a vital tool to help. One of the goals is to continue to build. I think
Yeah.
when you look at some other communities, we have really good relations. Our police officers do an amazing job. The community policing unit, relations unit, with our SROs and the command staff with the community. And I think this will only enhance and strengthen that.
The citizens, the residents have to believe in it as much as we do up here, or it's not gonna work.
Right.
And I think this is just another tool that's gonna get us there. I'm telling you, the body cams and get into a citizen review board probably is gonna do everything we can do possible in this life. Okay, so,
I'd like to make a motion that we follow the city manager's recommendation.
second from Clarence, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Oh, man, I forgot. Hey, Lawrence, you gotta come on up and talk.
Yeah, I don't understand, why would you make a motion when there's cards up there?
Because
He
I,
didn't realize there was
Yeah,
a
he
card,
didn't
and none of us knew there was a
go
card.
ahead.
All right, you know what? Nothing personal, I didn't come on the special meeting with that CSM report, and I didn't because I knew I'd probably be escorted out of here. I hear everybody talking about what we need. Why don't we stand behind Cocoa PD? Why don't we tell the people that are saying that we need to fire this officer, this officer, this officer to take their behinds out in the street and tell their friends to start admitting and cooperating and letting us know who killed Bo Thomas on October 26th of 2016 and let him die in front of his 5 kids. Mr. Whipple, nothing personal. I don't see the urgency in this other than politically motivated. I do believe that Cocoa PD should always be held accountable and every officer that's employed with it accountable. And it can be done. But this politicizing this at this moment in time pisses me off. Henry, I've known you, I've respected you. The 2016 Crime Summit, I told you afterwards, my issue was the people you had sitting up on that, in front of those tables, the principal from the Cocoa High, she's not there anymore, that justified the burglaries and the thefts in the neighborhoods because they needed to put food on the table because they didn't have jobs or they had drug problems. Why don't we address the actual crime problem right now? Everybody's saying it's the lowest level in 20 years. Have you been on Peachtree Street lately? How about Peachtree and Prospect or anywhere in the neighborhood? I heard you just say you've got an uptick in thefts overnight. Believe me, every street over there between
Hey,
520 and
I just drove and sat for a second right in front of your political signs of that lot next to and there was 2 hookers and a pimp sitting there.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. We need to jump on it, man.
Exactly, but we can't jump on it if we're, look, I don't have a problem, and I've said this before. I think Chief Cantaloupe and his officers, from my experience, and this is just my personal experience, okay? I've never had a problem getting an answer. And Chief Cantaloupe, I think, will admit to you, I've called him on many occasions when residents in my neighborhood picked up the phone and said, hey, Larry, this officer did this. I'm real quick. Same thing happened to Officer Torello, okay? And you respond to it, you get the answers out there, you deal with it right then and there. I don't see this urgency to where you say you need it done right away, other than politically.
Well, that's your opinion.
Exactly,
And you're entitled
to it, and
you're entitled to it.
Excuse me, sir, you will not.
Hey,
Dis-
Hey, Larry, you're done. Larry, you're done. Gotta stop.
You will not disrespect
That's
me
it.
like that, sir.
That's right. Sit down, Larry.
We don't need to know your opinion on everything.
Yeah.
You sit down.
No, Alex, sit down, please.
Hey.
Alec,
Chief.
okay.
Can we, if maybe we disagree with others, but can
Yep.
we agree to disagree professionally,
Right, that's right.
respectfully?
Point of order. Shut up and don't point at me. Don't point at me. Bring it outside. I already know. Oh, bring it outside.
No, go outside. There, okay, good.
Go back to Colorado.
Chief,
No,
Chief,
Chief.
Chief.
you need some help.
Chief.
That's a no.
All right. Miss Houston?
Okay. For the
Could you-
record, everybody, for the record, look, nobody's doing anything wrong. We're just putting policy in place to make things go better. Okay, so we're not blaming anybody for anything, all right? So we're gonna move forward off this,
You missed delegations.
Yes.
yeah, you missed it. Sorry about it. Okay, so let's go to the next issue, the next
Item?
item.
Yes, sir. That's me.
Tammy? Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
this is the first item under city business, requesting settlement authority for the tentative settlement agreement between former City of Cocoa Fire Lieutenant Omar Shear and the City of Cocoa, authorizing the payment of the workers' compensation settlement and requesting approval for additional settlement authority for former Fire Lieutenant Timothy Olson's workers' compensation Medicare set-aside arrangement, and to authorize the city manager to finalize and execute such legal agreements required to complete the settlement in accordance with the settlement authority approved by city council, it's a mouthful, and approve a resolution amending the fiscal year 2018 budget through the use of general fund reserves to cover any settlement agreements. And I can answer any questions you might have.
Ready?
I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
No questions.
No.
Anybody want to take action?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay.
All right, so,
The next
Number
one
two.
is item number 2, to approve the 3-year contract between the City of Cocoa and the International Association of Firefighters for the contract term of October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2021. And they are members of the fire department, and the council chambers here tonight as well, as you can see. So we've been negotiating, all of our union contracts at this time. They're all open right now, or majority of them are open. So this is the first of the first 3-year contract that we were able to get to y'all for ratification. So we're very proud of that.
I think that you should be proud of that.
Should be
I think
proud.
This is the first
Yes,
time that the
very good.
firefighters have ever come in first in contract negotiations. Yeah.
I would like to add that, Rusty and I were speaking the other night, and this is the second time that there has been a contract in place prior to the existing contract expiring as long as he's worked here.
Whoa.
So we certainly appreciate the negotiating team on both sides, operate in good faith, and negotiating, and we thank them for their professionalism
absolutely.
and their
Yes.
service.
Yep. I know it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of
Yes.
angst, like the item before this. But the thing is you're right, that's two contracts in a row.
Yes.
That's
It's,
amazing.
it's quite a different than of old.
Yeah.
For sure. And we appreciate you all.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's nice
It
to
should.
get this.
Yes.
Yeah.
it shows. You do a great job.
And thanks to the staff who worked on the staff side to get this negotiated. So I guess since this like sets a record or something, that we should make a motion to approve it.
I think so.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second down here. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you, guys, very
Thank you.
much. I go
Thank
talk
you.
to the rest of the unions and see if you can motivate them.
I knew somebody would say that.
No.
See if you can get the rest of them motivated so we can get this over.
Yeah, thanks for everything. Good, okay. The old days, that would have been the problem.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Chief.
Chief.
Chief. Yes,
Oh.
sir.
I'd just like take a second, recognize the firefighters that are in the audience, because you know Rusty Single, who's our union president, but also next to him is Pat Madden, who's the secretary. He's one of our drivers. Behind him is he's over there signing, First Vice President Brian Ackerman. And then there was another member, Chuck Burkhart, who isn't here tonight, but he was an important part of that team, and they were very professional throughout the negotiations, which always helps move things along. And then final gentleman there on the left is our newest member of COCO Fire Rescue, and that's Chris Womack. So,
Hey,
Welcome.
Welcome. Great.
another Womack in the employ of the city of Cocoa, all right.
Thanks, guys. Good.
Thank you, and thank you to the fire chief as well. So he was really great, you know, working to collaborate on both sides to come to an agreement on all of our issues that we discussed. It was really great.
He is sort of a common spirit there, so
Yeah. Oh,
that helps.
Well, that speaks to his professionalism
Yes,
as
it
well.
does.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
It's not your first rodeo.
No.
All right. Okay. Okay, so we got utilities.
Okay. Approve participation in a cooperative purchase agreement with Hydromax USA to provide hydrant and valve assessment and maintenance service utilizing Seminole County contract number IFB-602347-15 GCM, effective November 23rd, 2015 through November 23rd, 2018, pending approval of the fiscal year 2019 budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
The next item, approve participation in a cooperative purchase agreement with All Terrain Tractor for restoration services utilizing Orlando Utilities Commission contract number 4218-2 OQ, effective January 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2019, pending approval of the fiscal year 2019 budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The last item, approve the Sixth Amendment to purchase agreement to the Water Resource Consulting Service Agreement with Water Resource Associates, Inc., WRA, Tampa, Florida, effective September 30th, 2018 through September 29th, 2020.
Okay. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I didn't have any questions, so motion to approve.
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Hey, Rusty. We should get a picture, all of us. You want to do it? Let's do it. Maybe we can get Brian outside, maybe? Yeah. See if we can find him or call him. We're going to do it. Okay. Anybody in the audience from advisory board or a committee that would like to speak? Norris? Nice shirt.
I only wear it on 9/11.
Yes.
Yep.
Norris Park, 1111 Burnham Street, Cocoa, Florida. As the chairperson for the Cocoa Firefighters Pension Board, I was just commenting to this gentleman, I'm very proud of them to be able to come in so professionally and negotiate with you all. It had some changes in the ordinance, and of course that affects our board, but it really didn't affect any financial aspects of it. just some of the things that are going on right now. We did receive a letter from the state, which Mr. Tanowich has advised you about, them asking us to reduce our percentage, and we are working with our actuary at this time to do such, just to see what type of cost effects we may have to maybe save some money for the city, so we're working on that. We just have a lot of gentlemen that are actually participants that are having workman comp issues, and as I just saw a couple of them there, one of those was 10 years ago, still on the agenda here, so I don't know what, we didn't have anything to do with that, of course, but of course, that gentleman's been retired for at least 8 to 10 years, so, yeah.
Wow.
But I thank you for the support. Mrs. Butler, Mrs. Butler's not there anymore, but Mrs. Howell and her staff and all those, they keep everything above board with us, and they keep us advised of what's going on, and anything coming from the state. And of course, you got the letter from the state for the money. The state seems to be holding our money a little bit longer each year, and a little bit longer and a little bit longer, but we still eventually get that money. So I'm glad to say that we seem to be in compliance there as well. We are thankful that we're able to meet here in the chambers, but I have had other individuals ask me, why aren't we able to see the firefighters pension board? And I'm not directing that to anybody, but I just think that might be something we might put up on onto the website like you do for the council meetings as well. Again, thank you for support, and again, a reappointment for 2 more years. After 25 years, that might be it, so, but thank you.
You're too young.
Thank you, Norris.
Thank you, Norris.
Yes, Norris.
Appreciate your service.
Yes.
Yeah,
Let's get a picture real quick before we go into staff.
okay. Brenda?
Yeah, can we get a picture with Rusty and the boys?
Yeah, Rusty worked hard. Leave John. My God.
Tammy, Chief, Matt, Rebecca.
Matt, do you want to be in the picture? I can take it. You sure? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go to reports.
Yeah.
Tony, what do you got?
Nothing, Ms. Mayor.
Question for you. Nissan trucks, is there a visible difference in quality and running time and all that? What are you seeing? Anything?
Definitely, very few maintenance issues. They've been running great, no demonstrative issues whatsoever. They're starting to cycle through for the first time for their first PMs. Of course, that Mike Erdman's taking care of that for the next 2 years. So the maintenance on those trucks will be basically next to nothing.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's great. And,
No report.
no report. Thank you. Chief Calhoun,
No report.
Chief Prince.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a second and recognize the team that we had for negotiation, which was Assistant City Manager Matt Pure. We started out with interim Finance Director Laura Howell, and then Rebecca come in there toward the end. And then Tammy does the lion's share of work when it comes to paperwork and putting those contracts together and getting them out for not just the firefighters, but the other 4 that are being negotiated at the same time. So it's important to have a good team, and as you can see, it worked well. So Thank you.
It's true.
Oh, and don't forget our 9/11 memorial event is this Saturday at 6 at Cocoa High School. Come out and help us, go through memories of those who perished, both the citizens and the firefighters and police officers. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Gary?
Nothing to report.
Julie?
Nothing to report.
Tammy?
No report.
Want to say anything, Gary? I always like doing that. Super Attorney?
No report.
Congratulations on Tom Brady and the team winning this weekend.
Off to a good start.
Off to a good start. They
Go
look good.
Pats.
Yeah, I know. Assistant City Manager Matt?
Yeah, I'll just provide a quick update on the progress down there at the waterfront. If you've been down there recently, you may notice that the riverfront connector is almost complete. It will be complete by the end of the month. They're also reconstructing those finger piers at the boat ramp. They're maintaining one open while they reconstruct the rest. That should be complete by the end of the month, as well as the security cameras. And then just kicking off the shoreline restoration. There'll be some pretty heavy equipment moving around down in the park in the next few weeks to restore that shoreline as it once was, with an enhanced level of, I guess you could say, stone. And then also they'll be doing some trimming of the invasive species of plants there at the DOT pond. The pond there along State Road 520 where the relief is. There's an active permit over that for the mangrove trimming. The former group that came in there and did that failed to cut out any of the invasives, which makes up the lion's share of that northwest corner. So you probably see some pretty significant removal there. And that'll be complete by the end of this month. So.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Anything on the boat removal?
I believe Brevard County is in the process of submitting for the FWC grant for the vessel removal. It's my understanding those two vessels down there have been cleared in the court process for removal. It's the lack of funding that's available to have them removed. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Mr. City Manager?
5 items, Mr. Mayor. Number one, remind everybody, this Thursday, here in this council chambers at 5:30, this would be September 13th, is the second final budget hearing. Number two, following that, on the 14th, I'll be over in Orlando for the Florida League of Cities Legislative Policy Committee meeting. 3, Tuesday the 18th, there's a special COCO CRA meeting last night the Planning and Zoning Board reviewed and made its determination regarding the finding of conformity with the city's comprehensive plan. So there's a special CRA meeting on Tuesday the 18th at 5:30. Number 4, following up on a prior action the public workshop for the zoning ordinance related to the height from the commercial mixed-use large versus commercial mixed-use medium will be Wednesday, October 3rd at 6 p.m. at the Civic Center. The goal for staff is, following that meeting, is to, because we have a meeting, the city's first regular city council meeting for council in October is October 10th. The goal is to incorporate any comments, potential changes, that might result in terms of feedback and input from that meeting into the agenda item, and and if necessary, modify the ordinance. We'd like to do it on October 10th. If not, it would be the following meeting. It's all subject to, the comments that are received. GAI Consultants, Pete Sackler, will be facilitating the workshop, and they actually will be in town here later this week to do some on-site and some pictures to develop the models, to give the context that the council heard from some members of the public, and so I think that's the last thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was 4.
That was 4?
Yeah, the other one, 5.
I don't know, did I say 5?
You said
I did.
I could.
I can come up with something else.
He did say 5.
Yeah, you say 5.
My son's 5 for 2 more days.
There you go.
There you go.
Budget hearing.
All right.
Sorry.
And that's this week, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Good. See? There it is.
We held the pre-pricing, that's what it was. We held the pre-pricing call today with our, the underwriters, and not tomorrow, but the day after.
Oh, that's right. 'Cause
They'll be, Rebecca and one of our staff members will be going to Orlando, and Matt and I will be watching it, here locally. Putting the bond out on the market for a 2-hour period.
That's fascinating.
Actually, it's pretty interesting as they open it up and they put it out there, and then you start watching the call, people trying to, the buying, and you're seeing which maturity is going first, and what level, the latter years typically go first because they're 5% coupons.
Right.
And then sometimes it's actually an interesting process. And Craig Dunlop will be over with Rebecca and the underwriters, and he usually kind of, I know Matt and I have done it, and some other staff in the past, so it's very educational. You're literally watching that market work.
Right. Sure is. Okay. Mr. Whipple?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a couple of items. One, I need to get an update on the Heart of Cocoa Community Room from the city manager.
Yes, it's anticipated as we're still under the assumption it's going to be done by the end of this fiscal year.
By the end of the fiscal year.
That's the end of this month.
Okay. All right, looking forward to that. I just want to say that Stone Street is really looking good.
Sure
They
is.
paved it, and the stripes are down, and Wawa they're paving their parking lot for some reason. Half
Like
the
putting
lot.
a surface on it or something. I was
Put-
over there yesterday.
Yes, and I was wondering, did you know anything about that, sir?
As far as I know,
Going
sir,
over
they're just resurfacing it with black tar.
Yeah, black tar on
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I drove in there yesterday.
top coat.
and I
What about the Hess?
don't
It
know why.
has,
One-
it has some traffic issues early in the morning, so Chief, you might want to take a look over there early in the morning for traffic control. Somebody's gonna run into me while I try to get my coffee from there every morning. So.
It was pretty bad
It was
yesterday
bad.
afternoon, too,
It was really
yeah.
bad, yeah. Yes, it is. It's very nice. It's well-used.
It's
And,
well used.
It's well-used. Does anyone know what's happening across the street with the Karen? With the
Yeah,
business?
the Hess, they
The Hess station is
blocked it
gone.
off.
Do you know anything about
Looks
that? It's
shut
closed down.
Yeah, they closed it down, the Speedway.
I can look into it.
Well,
I told the manager of Wawa it wouldn't be long before they leave.
I think it's a function of the market. You're at a very limited store,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Wawa's a much larger and offers many more
Yeah,
alternatives,
maybe
for not just drinks and snacks, but they have, food,
Well,
fruit,
meals.
a lot of things.
Cook food.
I would like to know so I can tell the people that ask me. They think I'm supposed to know everything about what's happening, but that I don't know.
It's shut down.
So, it is shut down. That's everything, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
That's it.
I remember the Wawa opening. Remember the grand opening when
Oh,
it was
yeah.
either the police or fire they left
Oh,
the wax paper in between the meat. Somebody got penalized a few
It
sandwiches.
seems like the firefighters won that, didn't they?
Oh.
I think they did.
I still
Chief,
have
what
a
do you think?
trophy.
Yes, that's,
That's because they have more practice.
Oh, man.
Oh.
All right.
I understand the next round was donut making?
Yeah.
no, those are not donuts, they're called
That's
power
pretty good.
rings.
Power rings.
Power
Yeah,
ring making.
power rings, that's right.
Yep.
Speaking of donuts,
Wow.
anybody know anything about the
The Dunkin'
shop?
Donuts?
The
Yes.
Dunkin'.
Substation that we're gonna have across the Stone Funeral Home?
Oh.
The donut shop. Is there any news on that?
No.
No.
No?
No update?
Can you bring an update back to the next meeting?
Update?
Because I think there is some
Appreciate it.
information.
Okay.
Yeah, because code enforcement's gonna be going after that lot soon.
Yes.
Mhm.
All right, Brenda.
Just a reminder for everybody that October 13th is going to be the Police Department and Cocoa Community first canine competition out at Cocoa High. We had a meeting last evening. We're getting really, really great cooperation from Cocoa High. Their new athletic director is really enthusiastic about the event and the ability for the school to make some money off of this event as well, since we're allowing them to charge for parking and do the vending of the food. So it'll be a fundraiser for the high school to put money towards their track and field. And I wanted to say thank you to Southern Tape and Label and Space Coast Kennel Club and Pet Pros in Rockledge and Diamondback and Walmart for all their contributions. To this point in time, it looks like we're up to around $15,000 raised so far in cash and in-kind contributions towards the event. So looks like we're going to be able to make a success out of it. The only thing that seems to be lacking is Sheriff Ivy's canine guys seem to be afraid to compete, and I don't understand why. I thought that the sheriff's department had like the best canine guys in the county, but they seem to be afraid to sign up for some reason or another. Everybody else in the county wants to compete, but the sheriff's guys are just,
Scared?
they must be scared. That's all I can figure. They're scared because they're not,
That's probably why we never see him.
yeah, they're not signing up. So I would just like to say to the sheriff's canine unit, not Mr. Shealy and his guys out at the port,
Yeah, of course not.
although we are making concessions so that the detection dogs can compete in the obstacle course and won't have to do any bite work. If he could pass it along to the street patrol canine handlers that we're really disappointed that they're afraid to compete with us. And we're even asking our guys not to compete just so it'll be fair. So Officer De Los Santos and Kira are not gonna compete, neither is Canine Bear. We're staying out of it because we want it to be fair for everybody, so. So if you could just pass that along, Mrs. Shealy, and anybody else who might run into the sheriff, that we're really disappointed that he's not willing to come out and participate. We greatly appreciate it. You could call him if you'd like, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I may call him.
Okay, thank you.
I did notice their dogs are just sitting in their cars in the air conditioning all the time.
Yeah,
So that's
I
probably
noticed
what
that
it is.
too, yeah.
It's hot out.
It's hot out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we planned it for October. It'll be a little
Yeah.
cooler and,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, so the dogs won't. And, I mean, we're even gonna give them a free meal and we're not charging them. And the winner could get a really nice rifle from Diamondback, so, I mean, and there's cash
Nice.
prizes, so, I mean, it's really worth,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we've had a sponsor donate cash prizes for the winners, so.
So you're saying Copper is scaring them off?
It may be Copper that's scaring them off, I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, he's out there working on his obstacle course skills, so it may be, yeah.
Might be the first dog to get a PhD coming up here too.
Yeah, he may.
Probably is true.
Yeah, he's getting there.
Okay. That's it?
Yeah, that's it for me.
It's different when Don's not here to.
I know, to
It is.
harass me, I know.
Kind of just waiting for Don to say something.
I know. Aren't you done yet?
You done yet?
We miss you,
Okay.
Don.
Yeah, we missed Don.
Yeah.
Jerry?
I don't really have anything except I had a resident contact me recently and ask a question about, and maybe Matt can help me out with this one. They were asking about the water line on Sykes Creek Bridge. Is it, I mean, everything there is been repaired and functional. I know the bridge isn't repaired, but the line itself, there's no issues, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Katie would probably be able to respond to that better, but yeah, immediately after the hurricane, they shored up the pilings and secured those. The bridge itself remains closed to vehicular traffic.
And I know that's not gonna be repaired for, what, 3 to 4 years
I think they have, yeah.
approximately?
They're applying for
They're
funds.
applying for funds. I
Yeah.
think. But no, our water line is functional.
We're functional, and we have no other issues with any of our water lines, correct? As far as
Well, as
out
far
to
as
the
that,
beach, out to the beach line, or
No,
to
we're
any of the
fine.
other outlying communities?
no, we're fine.
Okay,
No, I know there was recently, I think, a story on on the progress of that bridge. There's also the county sewer line on it as well.
Right, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. That's it. That's it for me.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Matt, the bridge, nothing's happened.
I don't have any further information.
I guess they're trying to find the money. That's it.
Yeah, they're allocating the funding. I believe the intention is to open it back up to vehicular traffic, so.
Good. That leads into, that's the last hurricane. Believe it or not, we're in hurricane season. Of course, we're seeing a hurricane, was it Florence, bearing down on the Carolinas, maybe Virginia. So everybody kind of watch the ones behind it, and it's a crazy time, so hopefully this thing will dissipate and go north or something, but let's be leery of what's coming behind it. Also, I just mentioned it earlier, Chief Cantaloupe, when I was elected, obviously you know this, I was, the news reporting, like for the Today paper and the Orlando Live news organizations and the sheriff's office, putting out a lot of crime statistics, a lot of crime reports, and they're saying Cocoa, and it's really, they're all the county, Port St. John, Merritt Island, or, Canal Groves, Sharps, whatever. And so I just want to let you know that they're kind of back to that again, and I'll make a phone call, make it interesting, but we need to, it's not fair for the community to arrest people in the county and say Cocoa. Should say unincorporated, that was the deal, and they're not doing that. They're back. Yeah, they're back to the shenanigans again. So, fix it or not, I'll be out in a couple months, and I'll make sure it gets in the paper, make sure everybody knows. But it's not fair for the residents and people here. It's got nothing to do with us,
Yes.
And all I did was point it out and fight for years. We all have, and it's made a big difference. Part of the reason why the crime rate has gone down, that and the great policing and the citizens working to lower our crime, But yes, sir.
One of the things, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you in staying on top of being misidentified where crime actually happens. They also use the term, when it's in the county, they use the term near Cocoa.
Yeah.
They have to say something about Cocoa, even if it's in the county that the crime was committed. And it's not a good thing.
No, and just to mention a little farther, it's to me only, maybe John and the rest of the council, I take offense to it all, because if I don't talk about this, then you can come to your own conclusions, but, every 4 months, let's say, some buffoon will put something on social media or try to put it through one of the news outlets saying that Cocoa's the most dangerous place to live anywhere at any time, which is a bunch of crap, lies, fake news, and, again, I'll have much more leeway in a couple of months to do what I'm going to do. But the point is, it's so unfair to have just a beautiful city like ours with all the opportunity and upside and location, which is better than Viera, better than anywhere. And we're on our way, folks, to making it a really great place to live, a better place to live than it's ever been, I should say. But just to have these news reports come out, then you find out it's like somebody you know did it and they think it's funny. It's just not right. And we deserve the best. We deserve better. We're not victims of nothing. We're going to pave our own way. But, at least on your crime reports, if all the news media is going to look at the sheriff's office and says Cocoa, well, if they're reporting it, it's, it's in the county. Just say unincorporated Cocoa, like the deal was struck 4 years ago, right? So, I'm just venting. We've done a great job, and we're moving. After tonight's discussion, we're going to move right into better harmony, and we'll be better than the city south of us, north of us, east, west, whatever. We're on a great path. Going to look forward to the hotel meeting. Get better, Don. I don't know if Don's probably watching or not. And then the last thing tonight I thought was kind of funny. I noticed the city manager got a new truck, and I'm happy because it's red. Got a red truck. It's maroon, sorry, whatever it is. But I just want to congratulate your wife on that great purchase.
And now they can go camping. Oh, yeah, it's a great truck, and now they can go camping in style. And what do you think, John?
It'll pull a camper, yes, sir.
And that's it.
Without any concerns.
Yeah. You know, and again, folks, before we close up, it's campaign season. Let's just look at it for what it is. There's a lot of, not everybody, but there's good people running, and let's just, you know, be tolerant of everything. We got a great community situation going, and we're gonna make sure it's better in the future. It's all about building, you know, and on top of, you know, like what we're doing, the next council, the next council, the next council. But let's don't ever go backwards. Let's never let anybody outside the city limits dictate who we are, what we're about. It's a joke, some of the stuff I saw during my campaign run and the flat out fake news and lies I saw there. But I'm very optimistic on where we're going, the city. I'm very proud of everybody, what they've been doing and working, and, you know, from the council, the staff, the citizens. The citizens are the ones that really pick this thing up and walking down the road with it. So that's it.
Motion to adjourn since Don's not here.
Yep, motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for coming.